Well, for 9 years, one woman was central to all the inquiries into the abuse scandal here in North Wales. From the initial investigation in 1991, which led to the first police inquiry, and on to the Waterhouse inquiry in 2000, the local council official, Sian Griffiths, kept every detail, every allegation, and she's kept those documents ever since. Well, Porrick O'Brien's been to meet her and to get the first look at her extensive files and the unanswered questions that remain within.
In a small Welsh village, in the middle of the night, on a family kitchen table, the paperwork of child abuse.
What's this?
That is a schedule of abuse. It's a sheet per complaint.
If it was a sheet per rape or per assault, how high up would that bundle go?
Oh. 6, 7 times.
Up to here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Before any inquiries or police interest, Sian Griffiths was head of personnel at Clwyd Council. She was there at the very start of the North Wales care home scandal.
That is where we started in June 1991, of all the names of all the people that were involved in abuse of children.
She gave her spider diagram to police. It sparked the original investigation. In '96, she worked on the first inquiry, Gillings. In '97, she ran the council's secretariat to the Waterhouse inquiry. She sat through all of it. Some parts stand out. Like the time Detective Superintendent Peter Ackerley gave evidence. He was asked to list people the police had investigated and had referred to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Obviously rattled a load of names off, people that we already know about: Peter Howarth, Paul Wilson, Steve Norris, and a number of other people. He then got to the point where he named somebody who has been high up in the government, and at that point Sir Ronald Waterhouse said, no, that's enough, stop, and that was it.
And why did he respond that way?
I've got no idea. It was just, that's it now.
For legal reasons, we can't tell you that person's name. He was a high-profile public figure and is still alive. Another standout moment. The time convicted paedophile Gary Cook gave evidence. He name-dropped local people that had attended parties. Because he named them, they were called to the inquiry. But he also mentioned the surname of a different high-profile public figure. Were they called?
So Gary Cook mentions the name of a nobody.
Yes.
Randomly,
yeah,
as part of his evidence, and that person is called to the stand.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
And then Gary Cook mentions somebody randomly.
Yes.
And was that person called?
No.
And has anybody been able to clearly explain to you why those big names were not called?
No.
Sian Griffiths is not a conspiracy theorist. She believes that Waterhouse was worthwhile. She was the administrative gatekeeper who kept everything and showed me only a fraction of it. But then she went further.
Do you think there are people out in the community now that should be behind bars and they're not because the inquiry didn't do its job properly?
Yes. Yes, I do.
She has one man in mind, a local public servant at the time, and this is the effect he had on one victim asked to testify against him.
They tried so hard to get him to actually say something in the witness box about and he just wouldn't. He was terrified. That is how powerful the man is.
There is one man we can name. Sian Griffiths has notes of an interview between paedophile Gary Cook and his probation officer. He names Thomas Kenyon, son of Lord Kenyon, in his flat with victim Steve Measham.
Thomas Kenyon, Lord Kenyon's son, went back to the flat with Stephen, and then Thomas Kenyon alleged that Stephen had stolen something from him, reported it to the police. At that point, Stephen gave photographs of Gary Cook.
This week we reported that in 1979, victim Steve Measham handed police Polaroids that showed boys being raped and several faces of abusers. They eventually led to 2 convictions, including that of Gary Cook. But then the photos disappeared.
Do you know what happened to those?
An order was made for the destruction of those books and photographs. It's contained...
And you know that from paperwork from court?
Yes.
And you have it there?
I do, yes.
Well, what does it say?
The order is to be made for destruction of the books and the photographs.
And why would that be? Why would the photographs be destroyed?
I've got no idea.
There are now 2 new investigations into the police handling of the scandal and into the Waterhouse inquiry. They could do worse than to start at this kitchen table in Wales.
Apart from all the paperwork and all the files and all the folders,
Yes.
did any of this really get to you?
Yes, it did.
What bits?
You can't I suppose you can't believe that people can treat children like that.
And what was the ultimate price paid by some of those boys?
They died. They died.
Who died?
Simon Burley, Mark Humphreys, Peter Wynne, Lee Johns.
Well, Porrick O'Brien joins me live now. Incredibly moving interview there. Does Sian Griffiths, though, have any advice for these 2 new inquiries that the government set up?
Yes, she does. She says that if these investigations are going to take this seriously, there's one first relatively straightforward thing to do, and that is to contact the people who were named during the Waterhouse inquiry and get them back on the stand, so to speak. When I asked her how many people, she said there are probably about 6 key people that need to be called back. When I asked her how many of those are famous or big names, she said about 3. Just to be clear from earlier, Thomas Kenyon isn't one of those names because he, of course, has passed away. But for her, they're the people that need to be back on the stand, so to speak. And what's crucial here is that that one particular name that we named at the end of that film, that man who had that terrible effect on that victim in the stand, she says, is key. The victims want to hear from him, as do we.
Does she have any confidence, though, that we will?
It's too early to tell. I mean, it's only in the last couple of days that the police officers have actually started the work around looking how police have handled this, and a day or 2 since the inquiry into the inquiry, so to speak, has started. So, early days.
Porrick O'Brien, thank you very much for joining us.